and they won't get it back. So there was this huge, this is January of 2009. I have never been in a situation where usually it pops off sometime in March, April, June. When the summertime comes around, the weather gets nice, people start to really build a movement toward the summer months. This is the first time where there's actual everyday protests, activities, meetings in January. I mean, usually you have kids coming back to Cal Berkeley. Everybody's pretty quiet. So the groups that were involved, CAPE, Copwatch, the Native community, people from Black August, started to talk about the reduction of the entire BART police as an option. So the system had to say, whoa, they're talking too much, they're hitting on a subject of that we don't even need this police department. And so that became almost a radical revolutionary act, was all of a sudden questioning the police department after 2001, when they did on this terrorism bill, was something that the Serpent had to, and I call the U.S. government the Serpent, had to like backtrack and basically make this white officer stand alone. So it's been amazing in these last 2 weeks of this. Meanwhile, we've had the Gaza with Israel bombing you see a lone picture in the Chronicle of 4 Palestinian women, and they're climbing over rubble in the most densely populated place in the world. It looked like an earthquake zone where a building had collapsed. And you're like, wait a minute, that's happening not here in Oakland, where it's, this neighborhood's kind of densely packed and there'd be some life lost if they bombed the shit out of this neighborhood, but this is like densely packed. I mean, we're talking, people, 20 to this apartment living and an airstrike happening. We're talking about total out and out genocide. So that was kicking off. We were doing protests in the city for Gaza, so there's this real sense of movement in the Bay Area right now. This is, I'm not speaking for other parts of the United States, but with the Oscar grant coupled with the Gaza protests, we really have something going on. We're coming with the Bevatron issue next week. There was the RFID, the book, which is book tracking in Berkeley, which was, we were able to use the Berkeley Nuclear Free Act to voice this, that corporations are moving in to basically surveil what you read, who you hang out with, who you sleep with, what you spend your money on. This is corporate fascism that we're dealing with right now. And so we had a real turn of like turning the corporate factor back, and that was 3M, who deals with nuclear energy. So as far as the last time we spoke, it's just been, we have ongoing stuff like critical mass, which was great, and so that's basically an update.
I feel updated.
Yeah.
They cut down all the trees in the area where the BP and the Helios are going to be building their supposedly their, it's going to be their environmental research lab, and it's probably one of the worst environmental records. I don't know if it's the worst, but it's one of the.
What, BP?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the worst.
It's right up there with Chevron destroying the Amazon rainforest.
And so they'll be working on this research facility and supposedly finding greener alternatives to everything. Which, of course, that's just kind of funny. I mean, there's no real. I know that the issue's a little too well. there can't be anything seismically stable, or everything up there is either seismic risk or landslide risk.
You said that the new Helios project lays right on one of the largest slide areas, and I saw Pamela. Anyway, Pamela, she has the whole slides of it. She's great.
It's that one map, the bird's eye topographic map with the different colors, and each color shows
the Helios
degree
project is right in the middle of one of the most major landslides. Like if there's at all landslide, the Helios building's going. Which, not a bad idea, but the problem with this is that when these people get going, they're way out of control.
You know, and the thing is that we don't really hold environmental fractions upon these companies very effectively. I mean, and then when we finally do, I mean, just the issues are so fucking ridiculous of what we finally achieve is. Now and then I don't know. So they cut down how many eucalyptus trees? Was there anything else there actually?
Well, that's something that we'll never know. I mean,
the eucalyptus trees, they can just chop those down as far as I'm concerned, because that's what happened. That's what started the fire in the first place. The winter before, we had a big freeze. In Australia, it pretty much doesn't get in that kind of weather situation for that type of eucalyptus tree. And you can't build anything with those kinds of eucalyptus trees. And you really can't use them for firewood either, because they emit so much smoke, so much more smoke, that it's just a really bad idea. So basically, they're just good-for-nothing trees that grow a little faster than other kinds of trees. So they froze, and then some idiot with matches was up in the hill or something. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever know about that, but, you know, that's basically the end of it, and those things were all dead, and you know, they just caught up like fire. The entire
well, the problem is with global warming, the trees emit oxygen and take our bad carbon in, and we need to plant more trees. And the problem with the university is that when they see, okay, we'll take it out during fire dam, they do not have a replacement plan. Okay, we're taking out 18,000 trees, that's great, but what are we, like with the acacia tree in People's Park, where is the replacement for it? And so they never get back to us on the replacement plan, 3 trees to 1 tree planted.
Well, those trees were beautiful. I mean, they really were. And just to even replant them like on the, just to replant them on the south side of the park would have probably been okay. You know, just inset it a little bit from the street. You know, and there's plenty of space for people to throw frisbees or whatever. I mean, those were beautiful trees, and it was really stupid for them to cut them down. They weren't diseased. That's bullshit. Everyone knew. The diseased ones were removed in People's Park a long time ago, and the other ones they cut down.
I heard the one that fell over was actually an olive tree.
Oh.
It wasn't even an acacia tree.
Oh, okay.
Because those acacia trees were quite high. I mean, as high as that tree over there.
Yeah.
And if it fell over, it'd take some people out, you know. So what I saw was a small tree, maybe...
Yeah, it's like a 40-foot tall.
Maybe 15 feet maximum fell over.
Yeah. And I don't think they were hollow either. They were probably really healthy. I really don't think, like, there was another one on somewhere else at Berkeley that they said was hollow or sick or dying or whatever. Anyway, and it just seems to be that...
Well, they jump. They make that jump of, oh, let's, you know, this tree over here, look at it. And they'll, like, show it, and they'll say, well, that's the reason for cutting that tree over there. And they took the logs away. I mean, they were just so scandalous about... by the time I got back that day that they cut them, they were on the ground. I went to go get a camera so I could dictate them. When I came back, the logs, all cut for board feet, because acacia trees make good trim boards, were gone. So, I mean, trees down and gone within 2 hours, that's really suspicious. It's your hiding zone. It's like 9/11.
Well, in this case of the park, it just isn't logical because they were healthy trees, and they do act. UC Berkeley has terrible history of shady behavior in people's park area, and
Shady behavior. Yeah.
yeah, well, that's what they do, and they're awful. But what was it? So you guys are up in the tree, and then what was it? There was like trying to remember here. They weren't going to cut it down during the winter break.
Right, and that was the shortest tree sit in urban history when I was up there for like 8 hours. And so they agreed to that. Then we went back up before that they were going to cut them, and they coaxed one of our tree sitters down who was very suspicious, left town, got I still got to get my gear back. I still have my ID, my bank card, all this stuff is in the Cal Police Department. This is how they treat me, you know. It's just
oh my God.
a constant, like, slipping on the ground. So, you know.
How do you get your shit back from them?
Well, I had to write a written request to Ray McAdams and request that to give me back my first stuff. The second stuff, they're looking to charge me with trespassing. So it's
I didn't know about
being
all that.
kept under, yeah, that's where my shoulder bags are not with me. I'm changing, and you know, it's a constant. What people don't understand about my lifestyle is that I have a constant taxing of resources. When I'm grabbed by the police department, they take all my stuff, they go through it, any stuff that they can legally, like, throw in the trash can, they'll throw it in the trash can. I mean, I'm virtually running up the hill with them rolling barrels down at me while watering the lawn, you know. So it's a constant, you know, stumble, got to get my work back, got to get my resources back.
That really does sound like how much activism you do in an average week. I mean, honestly. During the whole tree sit, you were always either there to do with the stuff that you were going to do there, which was community outreach, making banners, talking to people, trying to get organization stuff done. Chalking the sidewalk, putting in messages, political messages, trying to help with getting the people fed, basically.
Yeah.
And then you were doing all sorts of other things, and it just seems like that's what Running Wolf does. He runs around and tries to do all these political things, you know. And it's kind of neat that that's what you're doing and that's what you're up to.
Yeah. The problem is the community, the problem with, and this stretches into the Native community also, the community doesn't understand that 90% of my work goes unseen and unthanked. They will see me disappear, and that during the tree sit, they didn't understand that the university has always crossed the lines with the Berkeley Fire Department, the police department, and have always been able to use assistance from the Berkeley PD and the fire department. In fact, the fire department was so tied into Cal that it was up at Haas Pavilion with the hook and ladder changing light bulbs. And so part of my job was to, as a mayoral candidate and somebody who's involved with city council and politics, was to keep the Berkeley and the fire department away from the site. So a lot of people thought, you know, got the picture that this tree sit was solely on this one area of 46 trees was solely wrong. I was keeping resources that Cal normally uses, the Berkeley Police Department, Fire Department, away. And the way I would do that would be to go to city councils to basically confront the police chief, to keep all these resources at bay, and tell them that they would be sued because this is